Good morning, everyone. This is Brett Simon. So welcome to those that are going to join me or have already joined me. Happy to take questions on any subject today. I don't have an agenda. I don't have any sort of prepared comments. So happy to take any questions and just answer those as they come. Okay. Good morning, John. How are you? Johnny Jr. says he's the first here, but he wasn't actually. And welcome to Jesus Lord. That's awesome. I always thought we had a little bit of divine involvement in some of my videos. Anyway, pleased to see you too. That's awesome. Right. So who's going to have a question for me? I'll take the first question. I've got someone who's suggesting I'm their mentor. That's interesting. But do we have a question? Here we go. We've got a question. Joe says, my host changed the address she gave me. Should I contact the embassy to open the DS-260 to change it or wait for the interview? Just wait for the interview. No need to change that. You can easily update that there. 87K AF Algeria, could there be any interview? You'll have to wait and see. I'm not quite sure what's going to happen with these last few days of interviews. I am expecting some more interviews to be arranged this week coming, but I'm not going to start trying to guess which embassies they'll go to or anything like that. I'm just not going to. I'm not going to do that. Hi, Month. How are you doing? Yeah. I knew you'd be happy to see me going live, so there you go. Any news about the court case? Yes, we lost the court case. That's what you've got to get in your heads, right? So DV 2020 and DV 2021 is essentially over. There is a suggestion of asking for an on-bank review, but honestly, I think you need to mentally just adjust to the fact that we've lost the court case for DV 2020 and DV 2021. Maybe we would get a more favorable results from an on-bank review, but it's not certain that they will even take it. And it could take us another year or 2 years to think about that. So just move on with life. Mentally move on with life. You mustn't get so put your lives on hold over this decision. It's already been way too long. Hi Brett, DV 2024, 63K Casablanca, any hope? Again, I'm not quite sure what's going to happen. CSB, Casablanca haven't issued any 2NLs yet, as far as I know. I don't know why they didn't, and I'm not in touch with the staff at Casablanca nor KCC to predict whether they're going to schedule any cases or not. So you just have to wait and see, right? And I'm going to be saying the words wait and see a lot in this live video because I'm not going to predict all these questions about, what about this embassy? What about that embassy? Am I going to get my I'm just going to say wait and see. Okay. Good to see you. My case number is covered by visa bulletin. Will I get a chance? Wait and see. 16K from Asia. When will I receive my 2NL? I don't know. And by the way, when you put 16K from Asia, that's good that you gave me the region, but I've got 2 years on the run at the moment, at least. Right, so DV 2024 or DV 2025. Without that piece of information, it's completely pointless asking me the question. Okay. Hello, Simon. I'm working in Dubai, but my interview is in Nairobi. I plan to interview there during my vacation. Could it be a problem? Yeah, sort of a problem. Depends how long your vacation is. Like your vacation will have to be for a very long period of time in order to justify, getting interviewed there. Now, if you're suggesting that you're going to somehow get an interview scheduled there because somehow they agree to do that, I mean, I'm not quite sure why they would agree to do that. They normally base it on your current address. But let's say they did that. Then, yes, you can fly into a country a week or 2 weeks before the interview, take the medical. You have to take the medical in country, right? The same country as the embassy. So you have to be there a week or two beforehand. Then you take the interview, and then you have to wait for your passport. Now, in some cases, there's 221G. That can go on for weeks or months. And so then what do? Do you leave the country again? Do you leave the passport with the with the embassy and have to stay in country. I mean, it's a bit of a mess. So you only consider doing that sort of thing if you're desperate, if you have no other choice. So, could it be a problem? Yeah, it could create lots of problems. And the short answer is there a chance for sending more 2NL during the coming week by KCC, awaiting a response? Obviously, you're awaiting my response. No need to write that. Is there a chance for sending more 2NLs in the coming week? Yes, I think there is. So far, they have sent 2,200 2NLs. With the number of 2NLs that they have sent, there is no possibility of maxing out all of the visas. And I know some people have got that question. I'm probably going to be asked that question. Are the visas going to be maxed out? No, not with the amount of 2NLs that they've sent so far. However, there are still a few days before the end of the month, so we could still see, and I do expect to see, some more 2NLs coming out. What I don't expect to see is for them to go around to all of the embassies that have already got 2NL batches and give them a bit more. I don't expect to see that. Some of you are dreaming that that's going to happen, and in general, that won't happen. I have to say, it's just not going to happen, right? So a lot of you who are disappointed because you were left out of a batch of this embassy or that embassy, your year is probably over. In reality, it's probably gone. There will be some cases, right? Out of the 150 or so embassies that we have, there might be some embassies that will get 2 batches in a single month. That does happen most months, but it's not all the embassies by any means, and I don't think it'll happen this month either. So what I'm expecting is for this coming week for us to get some 2NLs for some of the embassies that haven't already got a batch of 2NLs. Casablanca might be an example of that, for example. And we'll probably see some of those scenarios happening where we'll see embassies, possibly fairly big embassies even, like Casablanca, that could add a significant number of 2NLs. But they've already sent 2,200. Ideally, they should send another few hundred 2NLs, just a few hundred, maybe 1,000 or so. I mean, really, 1,500 would be pushing it. I don't think they're going to send that many. But what they can't do is they can't send another 2,000 or 3,000, right? Because if they send another 2,000 or 3,000, then we are going to have the problem in September where we run out of visas. And so I'm hoping that they're being a bit sensible about this and that we see a few hundred, maybe 1,000 2NLs this coming week. That's all I'm expecting to see, right? So, and that can be achieved, by the way, with not very many embassies. If you're talking about some of these big embassies, right? So we have to wait and see what happens. But anyway, fingers crossed for everyone that is waiting. And I hope there will be some of those cases, by the way, where an embassy gets a second batch. I'm hoping for that. I just don't think it's very realistic that it's going to happen very often. It won't be for every embassy by any means. So what about the backlog 2NL in Nepal? Any chance to get 2NL in August for DV 2024? See, Nepal is one of the ones that I think is kind of weird. The way they cut off at the point that they cut off, to me, it doesn't make sense. They issued 110 appointments for September. There should be more. So I wouldn't be at all surprised to see Nepal get some more, but I don't know that that's going to happen. I have no reason to believe that's going to happen other than the fact that what I see so far in the data looks a bit weird. It looks like they've cut it off too soon. Okay. After your interview, how long do you get your visa? It varies. Some people get that within 3 or 4 days, and other people wait, even if they're not put on 221G, other people wait a couple of weeks, right? It varies. Sometimes there are visa printing problems and that sort of thing. But then there are the cases that are put on 221G, either because they're asked to fill in a form called the DS5535, or just general 221G, which is background checking, essentially. And those periods of 221G can be quite extensive in some cases, particularly for people from the Middle East and particularly for Iranians, right? So, and in some cases, therefore, it means that cases have waited months after their interview in order to get their their visas, even though they were sometimes told in the interview, yeah, I'm going to approve your case, but that verbal approval means nothing. Now, of course, the deadline is still September 30th. So let's say you're interviewed on September 1st and you're put into 221G. The big risk for you is that your case cannot be approved under any circumstances after September 30th. And so you have until then to wait. And if your 221G is not able to be cleared before the end of that month, then you will lose your chance. And they don't refund you the fees, and you've spent money on the medicals, and maybe you've traveled to the interview, and all of that is lost, right? So yeah, it's kind of a problem. Mr. Simeon, interesting. I want to know if someone can have some of the vaccinations at a government hospital in your country and bring the vaccine documentation to your medical to reduce the cost. Yeah, in some places that is worth doing. Because the cost might be expensive at the embassy mandated physician, right? But the embassy mandated physician is in control of what vaccinations you receive, right? And I don't produce a list of what vaccinations everyone should get, because not all of them are appropriate or indicated for all of the selectees, right? So sometimes, for example, some of these things are seasonal. They might say, okay, we want everyone to have a flu jab, but only at certain times of the year. So it would be an unwise thing to read a list where it says you need a flu jab. You go get that from the government place, which is less cost, but you didn't need that jab because the physician wasn't going to ask about that anyway, or wasn't going to insist on that jab. So, you can end up having more jabs, more vaccinations than you need to do so if you go the route that you're talking about. But yes, you can do it if you want to. Okay, and yes, I do understand the cost aspect. Hello, my friend. If the embassy usually sends to an batch in September, depending on previous years, or don't have a hope Oman, you're basically asking, is there going to be a second batch for Oman? I don't know. You have to wait and see. Hello, Ewan. Is it possible, case number 81,000, to receive letter for interview from Africa, Liberia precisely? I don't know, because I don't know what's going to happen in the next few days, right? So all of these questions are wait and see answers, really. If someone graduated from high school 1 year before sitting for the national exams and made successful pass, can this be a problem for them during interview? Mohammed, you have to understand there are probably 180 countries around the world with differing education systems, and I don't know all of them, and I don't pretend to try and keep up with all of them. And when you don't even tell me what country you're from, I have no idea what your education system is. So you're asking me a question that I can't answer because you've been too vague. I have no way of answering that, right? I don't know whether a high school graduation in your country is equivalent to a high school education in the USA. I don't know whether the national exams are an important part or not, right? So you have to answer your own question. Or if you are going to ask the question, be less vague. You have to give me a little bit more information. And even if you give me more information, by the way, I won't necessarily know off the top of my head what the system will be in your country. So you need to do a little bit of research yourself. The point that they're looking at, the equivalence that they're looking at, is that you've been through a formal course of education, which in the USA takes 12 years. It can take less than that time in other countries around the world. That is acceptable. But it's the point at which you could enter a university with no further exams, no further education or anything else like that. So if the national exams are a part of that pathway in your country, where you have to take the national exams, then they should have been taken at the end of your high school education, because that would be the formal course of education. And you may need that formal course of education. There's several parts of the requirement. The number of years is not part of the requirement. 12 years is not part of the requirement, right? But the formal course of education and the fact that you are equivalent to a US high school graduate, which is able to enter university or college, as they call it in the USA, that's what's important. So you can't have done a non-formal course of education. What does that mean? You can't break up your education into different parts and do some by, by correspondence course education, or do make-up courses or anything else like that. That's what formal course of education refers to. It needs to be a continuous formal course of secondary education that gets you to the point where you can enter a university. Okay, so that's how to think about it. DV 2025 winner, Addis Ababa. When will be my interview? Case number 18,000. Did I have a chance? An angel is going to be slaughtered now in your name, Abella, because you didn't tell me the country. Sorry, not the country, the region that you're from. Is that Africa 18,000? Is it Asia 18,000? Europe 18,000? I could guess that it's Addis Ababa and therefore Africa, but I don't want to make guesses. I want you to be clear and specific. So always, when you quote your number, you put the year 2025. AF is if that's an AF number, and then 18,000. Right now, for Addis Ababa in particular, we don't know how that's going to operate next year. How it operated this year was it was very slow, and it was always behind. There was a big backlog. And it's only now released interviews up until about 24,500. And so your number at 18,000, for example, in DV 2024, if your number is an Africa case number, it would probably not be current until well into next year. But that means that there's a lot of time for you to wait and see what happens, in that case. Okay, Mantha. How many 2NLs have been sent out so far? Do you think it'll get bloody? No, I think I already answered that in terms of, do I think they've sent too many 2NLs out? They've sent out about 66,000 2NLs, or not 2NLs rather, but it's not about the number of 2NLs, it's about the people on the 2NLs, right? So about 66,000 people roughly have been invited to interview over the period of the year. That's not enough to exhaust the interviews. Actually, let me show you how I look at this. This might be helpful for others too. Let's have a quick lesson on how to look at the data. Everyone can see this data, so we've all got this ability. Present, share screen, entire screen, that one. Okay. So here's what we're looking at. This is obviously the site from Zarthisius, best place to get all the data, and this data is updated every Friday. This is not live connected, by the way. So if you're looking at this on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, it won't have the very latest updates that are in the SEAC database, because it's not live connected to the SEAC database. It's extracted at point in times on the Friday. Okay, now I said there were 66,000 people scheduled, and you're looking at this number, which is 63,700, and you're saying, well, Simon said there were 66,000 people scheduled. Okay, so the first lesson is that number is just the people that we know from cases that are assigned to embassies and marked as ready. There are another 1,097 cases, which we don't know the number of people, but you could roughly guess that that's going to be about 2,200 people. Roughly. So I'm adding 2,200 to this 63,744, and that's why I've said there are 66,000 people scheduled. That's the first lesson. And 70,000 is kind of my happy point. At 70,000 or less, we generally won't get too much problem in terms of interviews being cancelled. It's not a precise number. It's not 70,000. It's not like we're 70,001 and so, oh my God, everything is going to go wrong. It's not like that. It's approximate. It might be 69,000, could even be 68,000. It depends on how many of the cases get approved in any given year and and when they're scheduled, etc. So it's not a precise number, but it's a rough sort of idea. So at 66,000, we're getting pretty close to the final point, right? Now, the other way to look at it is how many people have been issued so far. Well, 36,380, according to this, have been issued. But again, if you've paid attention, you know that these 687 people in administrative processing status are essentially just having their visas printed. That's what that status means. They've been approved already. Their visas are being printed. So you add that number, the 687 to the 36,380, and that gives you about 37,000. So 37,000 visas have been issued so far. There are theoretically 55,000 available. I'll come back to that. And this says there are 17,500 people who are scheduled. But of course, I already told you there's 2,000 people here. So actually there's over 19,500 people are scheduled for interview, right? And 4,957 people have been put into 221G. So 37,000 have been issued. Another 5,000 are in 221G, and 19,500 are in ready status. That's people that have been scheduled for interview, right? And then you're saying, okay, that sounds like a lot of people. That sounds like we're already out of visas. Well, no, actually, because out of the 19,500 people here that are marked as ready, at least 4,000 have already missed their interviews in previous months. These are what I call no-shows, right? And you can pretty much reliably say that that 4,000 number is a conservative number. It could be as high as 5,000. And then in August and September, more people will not show up for their interviews, right? So even though that total number is probably over 19,500, we should really consider that to be something more like 14,000 people will actually still go to interview in August and September once the next few days is done, right? So we've got, let's say, let's just call that approximately 15,000 people, right? No, 14,000 people. We'll say it's 14,000 people. Out of the 14,000 people, some will be refused and some will go into 221G. So we'll probably get 12,000 visas from those 14,000 people, right? So 12,000 from there. And then out of the people who are currently in 221G, we don't know exactly how many will be approved, but some of these cases will be approved. Some will be refused finally, and some people will never clear their 221G. So out of that 5,000, we'll probably get, let's say, another 3,000. So we've got 3,000 from there, 12,000 from the ready cases. That's 15,000 on top of the 37,000 that we have here already issued. That puts us at about 52,000, right? And comes back to where I've said I can see having another 1,000 2NLs sent out this week, because that would be okay, right? That would take us from 52,000 and would add another 2,000 interviews to that, and so we'd get maybe another 1,500 issuances from that. And so you can see how it would sort of get pretty close to that 55,000 number. And the 55,000 number is reduced by adjustment of status as well. So we shouldn't see more than 54,000 in SEAC being issued, right? So we're pretty close, but we can afford to see another 1,000 2NLs being sent this month, in the next few days. That's how it could work, right? Now, if they go and send another 3,000 2NLs for this month, which is over 6,000 people, then that's a problem, because we just don't have that number of visas. Now you understand the math, right? That's how I do the math. That's what I look at. I look at all of these things. I look at the number of cases in transit. I add that up, and I look at it from the total number of people, and then to double check, I work out the other way, and I work out using ready status. I work out who is being who's a no-show already. How do I find out who's a no-show? By the way, I download this file, the current file, and in that file, the 2NL date is set. So from the 2NL date, you can tell roughly, well, if the 2NL went out in, let's say, in May, then a May 2NL was for a July interview, and that July interview should finish by the end of this month. So in the next few days, May 2NL dates are going to be, if they're still marked as ready, right, then those will also be indicated to be no-shows, right? But basically anything before May, with a 2NL date before May, that is still in a case status of ready, that's a no-show, okay? That's how you figure out how many no-shows we got. But I've already done that math for you. It's about, conservatively, ignoring July interviews, it's about 4,000. And then there's about 1,000 more, which are individual derivatives marked as ready on cases where the case is not ready, where the case has been adjudicated. And some of those will be like, somebody had the whole family, but went to the interview for themselves and didn't take the spouse or the kids or whatever because they couldn't afford it. And so those will also be considered no-shows. So that's why I said 4,000 is pretty conservative. Okay, education time. Okay, Mohammed says, big love. Any predictions about Dakar Embassy? Nope. No predictions. John Mugalu, is it possible to check my DS260 process DV 2025? You can check it. It's a waste of your time and everybody else's time at the moment, in all honesty, because we're too early in the year. And you're probably now going to tell me you've got a case of like Africa 55,000, which isn't going to be current until well into next year. And so I would just say leave it alone. It doesn't matter whether your case is being processed or not. But if you really can't hold your excitement and you have to know whether your DS260 has been processed or not, you email KCC. And I don't want everyone to do that because I would rather they spend time on scheduling cases than answering silly emails from DV 2025 people with high case numbers, to be honest, to be perfectly frank. That's how I feel about it, right? But that's how you find out. There's no other way of finding out. There is no online website or anything else like that that tells you whether your DS260 is processed. All you can do is you contact KCC and ask them, and they will give you one of about 3 or 4 different types of letter saying whether your case is processed or not. Okay. Can I tell you about Abu Dhabi for DV 2025? There's nothing I can say really at the moment. DV 2025 won't start until October 1st, right? So again, predicting how Abu Dhabi are going to behave next year is difficult. And it's, just, you don't need to know at the moment. Just chill out, relax. Case number is 45985, and in Abu Dhabi 2024, still now not in transit. Okay, again, got no region here. You told me the year, but you didn't tell me the region. Am I supposed to guess? No answer. What's the performance of Freetown Embassy in DV 2024? It's been pretty good. It's an interesting but slightly vague question. DV 24 last visa bulletin for Algeria was 108K. Interview stopped at 66K. Is there any chance for another schedule for interview? Look, it should be becoming obvious right now. Like I was on a trip when they released the visa bulletin, and I had predicted that that there was no. And what I had said before the visa bulletin was published was that I said there was no logical reason why they should make Africa current. And there's no logic, and I still say now, there was no logical reason why they did that. And if you watched the video that I recorded when I was on a road trip, and I said, and I seemed a bit pissed off that they had made the thing, that they had made the region of Africa current. It's for this. It's because you don't understand what the hell's going on. That's the sort of chaos that I think was unnecessary. It was unnecessary to make Algeria current to 108K when there was clearly not enough capacity to go to 108K in Algeria. What was the point of that? Completely pointless, right? It's only useful for a handful of people that are in either quiet embassies where they've gone up to, quite high numbers. And there's one guy, the highest case I've seen so far is case number 122,200, something like that, in Vienna, right? There's some African case in Vienna at 122,000. Lovely for him. I'm thrilled for him. But in terms of fairness to others, that's not fair, right? So, so there's a few little embassies where case numbers have gone high. And adjustment of status cases got a bonus because they can also submit their case. Their case number was then irrelevant once it was current, right? But other than that, for the larger embassies like Algeria, Casablanca, Nairobi, and so on, there's a capacity that they could go to, and making the region current will only benefit a few cases, a few hundred cases, not even a few hundred. It'll be like low hundreds, right? So, the visa bulletin was simply wrong, right? And I'm sorry if people don't understand that, but it was wrong. It's one way to make sure they can issue as many visas as possible, but it's not going to help most people. That was the problem, right? And also, there is an unfairness created. I've explained that in other ways, and this thing about the way that some embassies. I created a video and showed it last night. I posted it last night. And if you've seen that video, you will have seen that I pointed out, for example, in Frankfurt embassy, it's very clear that there is a preference order given not only on the case number, but also on the region, alphabetically. So alphabetically, Africa was placed ahead of Asia, and Asia was placed ahead of EU in Frankfurt, in Germany, in the middle of EU, right? If you're an African, at case number 90,000, you apparently had, according to the KCC's wonderful solution, you had a better right to your interview at 90,000 in Frankfurt than a case number at 30,500 in Frankfurt. It doesn't make any sense, right? But unfortunately, there's the rules. At least the rules were made clear, and I could explain them to you. But by making a region like Africa current, in that particular case in Frankfurt, it certainly disadvantaged cases in EU region because it's alphabetically sorted. So it's unfair, and it's partly unfair because they made the visa bulletin go so far. That's one of the factors that has made it even worse. Okay, so there you go. No, but you've already said that one. Oh, there you go. What? Could this possibly be the guy? Oh dear. Hello, sir. I'm AF 122201. Got my interview in Vienna. What's the next steps? Well, welcome. Thanks. I rarely get to meet, if you'll forgive the phrase, meet the actual people I talk about, but I just talked about your case. It's funny in a sense. Zarthisius and I were talking about this the other day as he was scraping the data. He found your case number, if it's your case. I think, what did he say? He said something like luckiest guy in the world or something. So you are probably one of the luckiest guys in the world. What's the next steps? Well, I can kind of forgive you for not understanding what the hell you're supposed to do, because you probably never thought you were going to get current. But what you're supposed to have done by now is you book your medical. You're responsible for booking the medical at the physician required by the Vienna embassy, right? So I hope you're in Vienna, and if so, you go to the embassy specific instructions. You'll find a list of physicians that you could go to, and you book a medical with them. You also must read all of the instructions. You have to, even if you've read them before, which sounds like you haven't, but even if you've done that, you read them again, right? And the instructions I'm talking about is the main general instructions, which are the instructions given to you in your original selection letter. It tells you where to go to read all the instructions. And then in there's links to the reciprocity pages and also to the embassy-specific instructions. You need to read all three of those, right? And get yourself properly prepared. Your case is going to be somewhat of a unusual case, because it's probably going to be the highest case number that gets scheduled in the world, right? And possibly, I won't say ever, but it probably not in the last 20 years have we seen a case number that high. So don't screw it up, right? Make sure you prepare well, because I want to see the word issued against your case number, please. But don't screw it up, right? So don't ask me again what the next steps are. You need to put some effort in now, right? Go read the instructions, get yourself ready. Interesting to come across that one. I hope it's true, by the way. I hope it really is you and not just someone pulling my leg. I'm from AS region. How about cases above 20,500? Have you thought? Do you thought they get an email, please? I don't know. You're going to ask again, right? Is the British Advanced Subsidiary level, AS level, acceptable for DV lottery? The A level, as used to be called in Britain was the right level. So I'm British, obviously, and so yes, I'm aware of the A level. I'm not quite sure what you mean by advanced subsidiary level, but I'm not quite sure what that is. But the A level is the level you need to have passed, and you need to have passed in England or in Britain. You need to have passed either 2 or 3 passes at A level, so that you get a certain number of UCAS points. If you're in Britain, you'll understand what I mean. Amid, what is the requirement for doc uploads? I read I have to upload documents. You don't have to upload documents. You forget it. You're not going to be asked to upload documents. That if you'd read the instructions properly, you would have seen that they're no longer requiring documents to be uploaded. Please, I unlocked my DS260 form, so which confirmation page should I take to the embassy? It doesn't matter. Either one is fine, but the latest one is fine. If consular asks about the address, should I answer with the one on the DS260 or new address? New address is fine. 2025 lottery, when will it be released? 1st of October will be the first interviews, if that's what you mean. When will the VB be released? It'll be released in August, from the 8th to the 15th of August. Okay. I'm from AS region. How about the cases are you? So Salwa, stop repeating your question. That's annoying. Hi Brits, I'm in Hopewell as well. My is Sam Free Mkigali with case number 38K. My is Sam Free. I can't read this text speak. I have dyslexia. It's bad enough reading this stuff in public without having to read your text speak. If you can put whole words there, please, in English, it would be helpful. But worried about our embassy performance, so need your advice about how to go about yet. You're in Kigali. Can I answer this, Sam? Sam, I can't answer this. I don't know what year you're in. I don't know. I'm assuming you're an Africa case, but I don't know. I can't answer it. I can barely read it, let alone answer it. Is worldwide visa available or fulfilled? It's not. It's not. We're not at capacity yet. There are visas available still. I just showed the calculation to show you that. 23K EU 2025 for Tbilisi. Should I change it to another European country, or do I have a chance? You have a chance. Is it true that if you get selected for DV lottery and aren't scheduled for an interview, your chances to get other types of visa in the future get lower? Okay. What? It's not that you get elected for the lottery. It's actually what goes on in the process. So for non-immigrant visas, like for travel and that sort of thing, as you're referring to, one of the key concerns and the highest number of refusals for that type of visa is when the consular officer believes that you'll overstay your visa, that you don't have strong ties to go back to your country, and that you may have intention or desire to emigrate to the USA, right? That's non-immigrant visas, and the highest number of refusals comes for that reason, right? Then what have you done when you win the DV lottery? You fill in a DS260, which is an application for an immigrant visa. So your DS260 submission, not winning the lottery, but your submission of the DS260 is a factor that for the non-immigrant visa, they're going to take that into account. It's going to be one of the factors that they're going to consider, right? And so it doesn't make it impossible to get a non-immigrant visa, but it can make it a little bit more difficult because you've given them evidence of what they are usually concerned about, right? I hope that makes sense to you. It's about the DV 2020 case, says Linda. It was appointed for interview. Due to COVID-19, it's not rescheduled. Can we contact the embassy? What do you advise us, please? I advise you to enter the lottery again because your DV 2020 case is dead. It's not going anywhere. The fact that it was appointed and then cancelled, etc. Unfortunately, there's no relief for you. There was a lawsuit that might have covered you, and we did win that lawsuit to start with, but the government appealed, and that appeal has now been ruled against us. Okay, so unfortunately, your case is over. Is it possible to receive a letter for interview for 8080 case number for 2024 from Liberia? I don't know. You'll have to wait and see. Sawa, you're driving me nuts. So if I could ban you at this moment, I would. Can I ban you? I wonder if I can. I wonder if I can delete everything that you've put in there. I wonder if that's possible. Ooh. Put user in timeout, delete comment, ban user and delete their comments. So I'm very close, Sawa, to banning you and deleting your comments, because that's an option available to me. So stop bloody well spamming me, please. Danny, we got our interview scheduled for 3rd of September. Well, that's good. That's exactly what I want to read. Is an already submitted DS260 made a mistake in the address school? Is it going to cause any problems? Please, no. That's the sort of thing, by the way, you're talking about the address of a school that you attended at some point in the past, maybe 10 years ago or 20 years ago, right? That's exactly the sort of thing that I would be pissed off with people to unlock their DS260 for. That's stupid. You don't unlock your DS260 to correct an address for a school that you haven't been to for 10 or 20 years. It's just not necessary, right? So yeah, that's what I call trivial. Okay. Please, my case is 30-20. Oh, it's 30-25. You're well ahead of the game. So you've got to wait quite a long time before the 30-25 lottery is around. But thank you for trying to put the case correctly. So let's say it's 2025 AF34K. Thank you. That's clear. My profession is fashion design. Well, come here. I just went and bought a bunch of material with my wife and a friend of hers from Spain who's a fashion designer. So yeah, I spent a very happy 3 hours. 3 hours. 3 hours looking at all sorts of materials and pretending to be, being very interested in all of this material that they're looking at to make dresses or something. And we bought a bloody enormous amount of it. So anyway, I digress. My qualification is junior high school from Ghana. Please, do I qualify to schedule for an interview? Thank you. Okay, so I don't know what junior high school level means in Ghana, but I suspect that that's not going to meet the education standard. And being a fashion designer probably doesn't meet the education standard either, because unless you are at least a nationally known or internationally known fashion designer, and you're making a good living from it, then basically you're a dressmaker, and that's not a qualifying occupation, right? So unless you're literally making a very good living from your profession, then it's probably not going to help you. Now, the other problem that you have is even if you can qualify through educational work experience, which I think is dubious in your situation, your case number is super high as far as Ghana Embassy is concerned. And so you would probably have to move to a different country anyway in order to get scheduled, because Accra are probably not going to schedule you. They're behaving very badly. But anyway, you need to think about whether your junior high school would be enough of a qualification to enter a university. It doesn't matter whether you went to university or not. The question is whether your junior high school education is a high enough qualification to enter university for a bachelor's degree with no further education, no further testing, no sort of adult courses or adult education, etc. I don't think it is, as a rough guess, but you know your system better than I do. Okay. Did Bucharest announce interviews or still not for September? I don't know. You can check Zarthisius's website to check that, right? Well, let's do it for you. I don't know why, but I'm feeling nice. So you come on here and you can check yourself. You just put in the place you're looking for. Did Bucharest take cases? They took on 7/24, they took 10 cases. And they are to case number, let's say if that's EU only, case number 32,000. So it seems like, they like more or less every other embassy can't get to the 50,000 number that was made current. that's impossible. It was a waste of time making that number of people current. Just a waste of time and cruel, frankly. It gave people the impression that everything was going to be lovely and wonderful and they were going to get their interviews, and that was never going to happen. So, sad. DV24 EU 28,600 from Sofia Embassy. I know we should wait and see. Good. However, I feel like this is about to go worse. However, my case number is relatively low considering the late period. Do you believe I should receive 2NL next week? So, did Sophia get cases? Let's see. Don't know. So I don't know if Sophia did. You're already about the right level. I don't know whether Sophia has taken cases or not. What can happen is if we look at the number of cases that are scheduled, there are always some cases in transit. And if we look at the high level, you can see this. There are in transit right now. There are 140 cases in the EU that are in transit. The people that have those cases in transit know that they've received the interview and they know where they're going. They know which embassy they're at. They've got all their details, right? But from us looking at the SEAC data broadly, we can only see that these 140 cases are in transit, and we don't know which embassies they're going to until those embassies have marked the case ready, right? So we don't know where they are. So is it possible that Sophia has taken cases already and I don't know about it? Yes, that's possible, right? And it could be some of those 140 cases. I don't know. Is it possible if they haven't already taken cases that they get some this week? Yeah, that's possible. But I don't know. Okay, so you have to wait and see what happens, I'm afraid. Okay, what about Ankara? I'm on the edge with EU 6,200 now. Yeah, you are on the edge. So Ankara have taken cases. If we look here, looks like I'm going to be doing this for a few cases. Ankara did get some cases, but I see it's not updated here, which means I know about it because I heard that they were issued, but not issued, but sent. But I don't know to what number they got to. And obviously it's pretty low there, right? So you're about in the right range where you could get an interview, put it like that. But I don't know whether you would have been sent out already or whether they're going to accept any more cases this week. You'll have to wait and see, I'm afraid. Okay. Okay. Let's see. I asked you before, but it was not clear. The reason Ankara is working slow, is this you, Haluk, up here? I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what the rest of that question was, Haluk. So if you've got a question, Haluk, and you don't get a good answer here, feel free to post your question at britsimonsays.com. Everybody should do that. I can't get to everybody's question. And so everybody should go and post their question at britsimonsays.com and you'll get an answer then, right? Patrick says, prior to filling out the DS260, I hadn't traveled outside of Ghana, but after submitting, I have traveled outside Ghana. What do I do? Doesn't matter. You don't have to update your DS260 with trips that you took after you submitted the DS260. You don't need to do that. The DS260 was accurate at the time that you submitted it. Now, if you unlock your DS260 for some other reason, for a correction, then you should also update your travel history, right? That's how it works. Okay. Oh, hello. I transferred my case by KCC from Ankara to Frankfurt according to the new FAT. Do you think Frankfurt Embassy asks working or permanent residents? I don't know on the second part of the question. On the first part of the question, I don't know. I've got a lot of people who keep telling me that they have transferred their cases from Ankara to other embassies and so on. And I wonder whether KCC would agree with that statement. A lot of people have emailed and asked for that transfer, but I'm not sure that KCC has actually moved their case. It's not actually a transfer. It's a move Because if you were in the AV queue for Ankara, then KCC's normal response up until now has been, no, you can't move, you can't unlock. And so you can't move your interview. Now, there are some exceptions for some cases, like Afghanistan. Afghans can ask to move because they're homeless. But Iranians are not homeless. So, so it's interesting. I'm thinking that there are people that are telling me, oh, well, I moved my case and I haven't received my 2NL yet. I'm thinking, yeah, you think you moved your case, but I don't think KCC moved your case. So, and anyway, now, hopefully, Haluk, you're one of the 17, I think, 17 cases were scheduled in Frankfurt from the Asia region. Perhaps you're one of those. I don't know. But if you're from, anyway, I don't know where you're from, Haluk. So can't answer the question really. Okay, how long does it usually take for the DV fees receipt to be received? If you're talking about doing adjustment of status, I don't know the current timeline for receiving that receipt. It used to be like 2 weeks, but I don't know. Now, can you file an I-485 without that receipt? You can, actually, as I understand it. Now, someone's mum is always the best answerer of anything adjustment of status related for DV cases. But in a pinch, if you had to, you could submit, I think, you could submit your I-485 package without your receipt. She would be the right person to correct me if I'm wrong, but you may want to do that, or just wait for the couple of weeks. Up to you. If they put you in 221G, will they give you your passport back if they believe AP will be for a month or longer? It varies. Sometimes they ask people, do you want us to hold on to your passport or not, right? And if the people have travel plans, then they will say, okay, I'll take the passport back and then I'll return it to you once my case is over. But understand that when you take your passport, you're creating an additional delay. You're building an additional delay into the system, so that when your 221G finishes, they then have to ask you to get the passport so that they can then approve it. Whereas if they're holding the passport, it's a little bit faster, right? So you need to think about that particularly as we're coming towards the end of the year. Okay. Tech Pirate still waiting in KDU. It's weird what they've done there, Tech Pirate. 10,700, I think they've scheduled up to 10.7. I don't understand why they did that, frankly. For a KDU, that's unusual behavior. Okay, so fingers crossed for you. Asia region, 22K, Mumbai, India, embassy. They have a lot of other visas rapidly, but not many DV visas. Yep. I'm hoping that reason will increase my chances. Any thoughts on this? Not really. No, I don't have any thoughts on that. And I think Bombay or Mumbai has already scheduled for September. So I'm not quite sure what you're saying about that, really. As a new immigrant, which state will I be considered to be a resident for with respect to college tuition fee? In order to be considered locally resident, you have to prove that you're resident. So that's whatever state it is, they'll have similar rules. They will want you to show that you are a resident of that state, not because you say you're staying with your Uncle Johnny and you're sleeping in his spare bedroom. You actually will have to show that you've become a resident of that state. That means that you'll show, let's say, an apartment lease information. You show your driving license. There'll be certain records that you can show that a utility bill, like for gas or electric. You'll have to show records like that in order to show that you are a resident. And until then, you could be on vacation there, right? So, and being on vacation in California doesn't allow you to get in-state tuition rates in a California university. Okay, so each university publishes their rules on that, though, so you can read them there. Are there any other 2NL for Africa and Tunisia? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. What's the name of the form we need to the one that says we have friends or relatives to support us? And who needs to find it, us or the sponsor? It's the I-134 is the form you're talking about. You can download it from the internet. Your sponsor fills it out on your behalf, and it includes some information about you. So you might fill out some of the section, and then your sponsor fills out the rest. I created a video to help you fill out that form. Go search for it on my YouTube channel, and hopefully you'll find it. All right. My sister-in-law is EU24X in Armenia. In the last video, you said there is a chance they can schedule some more before the end of the month. Yeah, so there is sort of a chance, Alex, that they schedule anyway, right? But I think if you're talking about my last video, the one I posted less than 24 hours ago, you'll note that what has happened to a case such as your sister's or your sister-in-law cases is that some cases from Asia have unfairly, improperly been placed in front of your sister-in-law. Your sister-in-law should probably, get involved in a lawsuit, frankly, to try and make sure she gets her interview. However, that's going to be fairly expensive. I spoke to a couple of lawyers. Both have said that they don't have time to take on this case. It's a complicated case, and complicated from a legal point of view. It's like there's a lot of preparation, time consuming, etc. Not complicated from the principle of the thing. The principle's bloody obvious. But in order to make sure that it's won, it would take a lot of preparation. And so one lawyer said, I'm too busy. No. And the other lawyer said, I'm too busy. But in order to take on that case, a law firm would have to probably get $20,000 or $30,000 in fees, which means that you'll need to get a group of people together to make that affordable, because one person on their own probably isn't going to make it affordable, right? And so maybe if there's like 15 people, 15 cases, and they pay $2,000 each or $3,000 each or something, that might be enough to get a lawyer that can invest the time necessary in order to get that argued. And so it's a possibility. The other thing you can just do is your sister-in-law can just wait and see if a miracle happens, because it could happen that it could even be that someone at KCC is sitting there watching my videos on a regular basis, and they realize that they've screwed up and they go and fix it because they're worried about getting sued. And so that might happen too, and maybe there'll be some more interviews scheduled for EU people in Armenia. I hope so. I hope they do that. I hope they put it right. And I think it would be much nicer to do that without having to spend thousands of dollars on a lawsuit. KCC, wouldn't that be better? If someone graduated from high school, made a pass, but due to some financial issues, they were unable to write the national exams. Well, this is the same question from earlier. And again, it's the same thing. I can't answer this question without knowing the education system in your country. Let's see. Mr. Simon, are IRS and KCC connected in a way that unpaid taxes before selection or SSN amount around $1,300 can cause refusal, or it's not relevant for interview? It depends where you interview, actually. In adjustment of status cases, I'm pretty sure we were asked to show our tax documents. Now, I'm wondering actually now whether that was part of our citizenship interview or whether it was part of the adjustment of status. I'm not sure which. All I would say is pay your fucking taxes. I pay my taxes, and it's a hell of a lot more than $1,300. So don't be an idiot and not pay your taxes. Pay your taxes. You're here on probation, right? And it's very easy to lose your rights because you're not doing a silly thing like paying your taxes. You've earned the money, pay the taxes, right? And also don't pay the fines. I mean, why would you not pay the taxes and then find yourself being fined? You could be fined more than the $1,300, right? So just get off your ass and pay your taxes, and then you don't have to ask me the question. But to answer your question, are IRS and KCC connected? They're not really connected, but they can share information, right? So there you go. Yeah, this is a comment. I'm realizing that people didn't understand what the hell I was explaining. yesterday. People think that what I was explaining yesterday is the same as other embassies because some other embassy has a lot of cases from Asia, or and took no cases from another region, or that sort of thing. That's not the same thing as what I was explaining last night. I've got a lot of people who just don't seem to understand the difference. That's not the same thing at all. What the thing I was saying about Yerevan was the difficulty with giving people priority outside of the order that they should have been prioritized in. The priority order is what's important. The queue of people in AV status is maintained by KCC. That's what's important, right? And I'm not aware of any other examples where you can 100% prove that this has happened in those other cases. And people give me as evidence. They say, well, look, this embassy took 100 cases from Asia only. That's not proof. That's not proof of anything, right? That will happen. If you watch the first part of the video, you can see how, for example, in Frankfurt, 17 cases from Asia took visas in a block. If there had been more cases from Asia, there could have been no cases from EU scheduled in Frankfurt, in Germany, in the middle of Europe, right? How wacky would that be? That's not the point, right? So Campan, when you say it's the same as other things, and other people have been saying that to me this morning, the same has to be well, thoroughly researched, okay? All right. Otherwise, it may not be the same thing. What happened to my waiver application after September 2024? I don't know what you're talking about. What waiver application? I don't know what you're talking about. Hello, Simon. Is there any hopped to AS 17.7K? Iranian will be invited in KLR. I don't know what Kuala Lumpur are doing, so you'll have to wait and see, I'm afraid. Okay, let me take one or two more questions. We're at about an hour now. Let's see. According to Sarthisius, 2NLs have not been sent to Sofia Embassy yet. Is it certain that this embassy will receive a batch of 2NLs next week or the one after in the worst case? There is no guarantees here. If you want a guarantee, buy a fridge, right? There are no guarantees here. There is no guarantees that an embassy will take cases. An embassy may have said, we've got zero capacity for the month of September. I don't know if they've said that or not, but that's possible, right? So there are no guarantees that an embassy will take cases, right? There are very few guarantees in this whole process. You have to understand this whole thing is, the DV lottery win is a privilege. It's not a right in any way. It's just a privilege, and you don't have many rights in all honesty while you're processing. Concerned about JHB consulate sending out DS5535s. What are these for, and how do they affect my chances? So yeah, JHB, Montreal, and one other, is it Bulgaria, are overusing the DS5535. The DS5535 is a more extensive background check tool than the DS260. It's got a few more bits of information. It's largely very much what the DS260 already has. And there are certain embassies that are issuing the DS5535 at or after the interview and saying to people, okay, you've got to fill in this form. And they collect more information about your background so that they can do more of a extensive background search. That's what it's for. It can delay your case. And so there are a lot of people getting frustrated about this in Montreal, in Johannesburg too. And if the delay is long enough, it can cost you the visa, right? So, so that's what it is anyway. Okay. I'm going to answer this question, but I don't want to finish on this question because it's going to be depressing. Hello, Brett, DV 2024. Is there any chance Accra Embassy can send 2NLs for the 20 to 26K range, since they recently shot up from 5K to 10K case number range? And the answer is 100% no. That's not going to happen, Patrick. Let's be honest. The increase to 10K was a big positive surprise. The reason it went up to 10K was for the first time this year, instead of sending 20 interviews, which is what ACRA have been doing, and not even in every month, but for most months this year, they sent 20 in, they set their capacity at 20. Then for September, they did a nice thing, which was to take 95 interviews. But to dream that they're going to take another 300 interviews or 200 interviews, which is what you would need to get to your case number range, that's just a ridiculous, impossible dream. That's not going to happen, right? Let's just be clear. So no, it's not going to happen. I'm sorry to be so blunt, but honestly, I find it's better to be blunt with people rather than stringing you along with some ridiculous story that maybe that's going to happen if only you pray hard enough or something, or sacrifice a lamb, or pay me $5 or whatever. None of those remedies will work. God's got nothing to do with it. Lambs have got nothing to do with it. And paying me $5 won't have anything to do with it. I promise you. Or paying someone else $5. It's not going to happen. Okay. Sorry, my friend. That's it. When is the last date that we can be hopeful to get to an L? Okay. So I'm going to finish here. This is about my expectation for the next few days. This week we're still in July, right? Which is why I've said I believe that there still will be 2NLs sent in this coming week, because we're still in July. And it's possible that they can continue sending 2NLs for the first few days of August as well. And so we could see fairly large batches being issued this week at some point. After this next week, we will see a handful of cases being scheduled from time to time during the month of August. And when I'm saying a handful of cases, I'm literally talking about 2 here, 3 here, at different embassies. It'll be like that. We will see that. We see it every year. And, there's sort of really minor, very small number of interviews sent out during the month of August, which are for September, obviously. But largely speaking, the activity will die down at the end of this coming week. Okay, so that's it. Okay, everybody. I hope this has been informative for you. I hope you've enjoyed the session. Thanks everyone that joined me here. Please do go and ask any of your unanswered questions at britsimonsays.com. And fingers crossed for everybody here. Right. Let's hope this year finishes up pretty well. I want to see them. I don't want to see, to be very honest, I don't want to see them max out the capacity, because what happened last year on September 6th was horrible situation to happen. I don't want that to happen again. So, like I say, I'm hoping for a nice controlled landing this next week with maybe 1,000 2NLs. That would be good. All right. Good luck to everybody this week. All right, everyone. Bye-bye.